Welcome to my podcast, Politics with Sarah. And what are we going to be talking about on our first episode today? We're going to talk about racism. Yeah, racism. We are going to debunk the racist nonsense that has been dominating the scene for a long time, but in particular the last 6 years. Now, here's the thing about the woke left. They have weaponized racism to such a degree that everyone who has a specific opinion is a racist, right? Now, I'm a mixed race woman. I grew up in the 90s. I knew what real racism was. I grew up in a town in London where I was one of the very few non-white children in that town. And the National Front were everywhere, right? One of my earliest childhood memories was of a boy spitting in my face and calling me a Paki. Pretty nasty experience for a young child, but one I never ever forgot. Now, race relations in Britain improved a great deal for the last, I would say, 25 years. But what happened in 2020 after George Floyd was killed, when the woke movement kicked off? Well, suddenly racism became the dominating theme. Suddenly, if you were white, you were a demon from hell, you had white privilege. And if you were not white, you were a poor, poor thing who these leftists and these woke lot had to look after. Yeah. And this is a narrative that I've been fighting for the last 6 years, right? Because these people are so disingenuous, right? They're so disingenuous. They are calling people racist who aren't racist. And you know what they've done? They have used that argument in order to justify all of the horrors and all of the injustice that is going on in Britain today. Look at DEI. DEI, where someone is chosen for their skin colour or their ethnic background, and not because of their capabilities, but for their skin colour. And we've seen this happen in the police. Even the police have admitted that DEI is a big part of their force, a big part of their teachings. We all know what happened to Henry Novak, right? We're never going to forget it, right? It's not in the news anymore, but we're all remembering it, and we're all disgusted and horrified by what happened to that poor boy, where he was lying there and he was dying, and a police officer came up to him and looked at him, thought he was the villain, and when he said, "I can't breathe," he said, "I don't think so, mate." Doesn't that show the degree of evil that infected the police force? I think it does. And then you see how it has infected all the institutions. The fact that Britain has been demonized to such a degree where we are expected to pay trillions of pounds to African countries because of the time of the British Empire. This is one particular thing that I find ridiculous, right? When you've got celebrities like Lenny Henry banging on about how we need to pay these countries for reparations, I always say to people like this, well, first of all, we were living in the time of empires. We were living in a very, very difficult time. And the British Empire was the only one that decided to use its wealth and power in order to do good in this world. It was the only one who decided to ban the transatlantic slave trade. It was the only one who decided to bribe and blackmail other states and empires into ending it as well. It was the only one who decided to end the Barbary slave trade, which, by the way, was a Muslim slave trade that existed from the 1500s to the 1800s, where people from Britain and Europe were being kidnapped by Muslim pirates and sold to North Africa, and they never ever saw freedom. And that slave trade only ended in the 1800s when the British and the Dutch bombed the port of Algiers, and that was the end of that. And these are things that the left, the woke, conveniently leave out when they're banging on about reparations, when they're banging on about skin colour, when they're telling ethnic people and people like me, you know, and black people and mixed people and Asian people that we're all victims and, you know, we should be treated in a specific way. So why do I think it's really important to raise this issue now? Because I think we've reached the point of no return, right? Britain is a bubbling pot of anger right now. There are many people in Britain today, not just the white population, but people who are not white, who are very, very angry at what's going on. And this whole racism argument has been used to justify another very serious issue in Britain today, which is the issue of illegal migration. Now, some people like to blame Nigel Farage for this and blame Reform for this and Brexit for this. Absolute rubbish, absolute rubbish. Britain was never meant to be a part of the European Union. There was no vote to take us in, right? No vote to take us into the EU. We left the EU because we were supposed to leave the EU. And you look at what's happening in Europe today. Look at what's happening in Europe today. They are overwhelmed by migrants. They've got it 100 times worse than we have it. And Nigel Farage and Reform were warning about illegal migration for years. And now what's happening is we are actually seeing situations where illegal migrants are committing the most horrific rapes and murders in this country today. What about the situation where an illegal migrant raped a man in his 60s outside a church in London? That was one of the most horrific stories that I had heard. And there are many, many more like it. And yet the left wing, the woke lot, have defended it and justified it with accusations of racism. The racism argument no longer has any weight. Now, unlike a lot of these wokes and a lot of these left-wingers who are mostly white, right? I don't like to talk about skin colour. I can't stand it, actually. I don't actually see skin colour myself. And a lot of people don't as well. But we have been forced into this narrative. We've been forced into it. And now we are seeing the way that the left and the wokes have destroyed Britain, or trying their very hardest to destroy Britain. They try to demonise Reform. They demonise anyone who supports them. If you go onto my Facebook page, as I'm sure many of you have, you will see abuse after abuse, threats after threats against me for supporting Reform UK. This is the way the left and the woke work. That if you have an alternative opinion or you are considered a racist, apparently you're fair game for all kinds of threats and abuse. And then they try and twist it and they try and manipulate it and they try and play victim. But you know what? Nothing can stop the truth getting out there. Now, I personally support Reform because I believe that Reform is a chosen party of Britain. I don't just go based on my analytical mind, which is fair enough. It's a very good analytical mind. But I go based on my intuition as well. I've always done that. And I knew a few years ago that Reform UK was the party for Britain. There is no doubt in my mind that that is still the case. And these leftists and these woke lot, they try their hardest to bully and intimidate people online and off. But you know what? It's the left today who are the real Nazis. It's them. They're the real Nazis, okay? It's not about ideology. It's about the way they behave, their intolerance, their nastiness, their abuse, the way they treat other people, right? They've got the exact same character as those Nazis, and they hate hearing it. But you know what? The more of us who speak out, the more of us who feel emboldened to do the right thing. Now, I know that Reform will win the next election, one way or another, whether it's a coalition or it's not. They will win the next election and things will change and we won't have to put up with their abuse and bullying any longer. I tolerate it every single day on my page, every day, right? The truth has to be spoken, hence the reason for this podcast. And I will say to those of you who are following, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I want to talk about issues in Britain where we get the truth out. I want to invite people onto my podcast and get truth out there. That is the point of all of this, truth, okay? That is what we are lacking in Britain today, truth, right? We don't need to, have some fancy narrative. We don't have to follow any narrative. We just need to speak truth. That is all Britain asks of us. That's all she demands. Britain, to me, is not just a country. It's not just a piece of land. It exists in my heart. It is everything to me. And I will defend Britain until the end, no matter what anybody says. Not those on the left, not those on the far right. The real far right, the ethno-nationalists who tell me that I should be deported because of what I look like. I don't care about any of them. And I know the majority of people, whatever your skin colour, whatever your ethnic background or religion, I know the majority are with me, right? And I will back Reform. Because as far as I can see right now, Reform is the chosen party of Britain. It is the most loyal party to Britain. I don't care how much those on the left and the wokes try to bully or intimidate me. Never let them intimidate you. Do what is right because Britain demands it of us. All right, everyone. See you on the next one.